Now let's move on to our next speaker. It will be Professor Vasilios Tselents from University of Piraeus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belokas, for the invitation and the honor to be amongst the distinguished guests. At first, I thought that the subject of ports was a very small minority in the agenda of the conference, but looking in the audience, I see a lot of people that have served in the port industry or some years back or now as well, and that gives me courage to continue. And I do say that because really this brings me another sort of saying from a very dear colleague who said that if ports and ships don't cooperate, so if we don't work together, we will sink together. So I think that's a nice way to introduce this the topic that I would like to present to you. That is, what are ports doing in order to sort of sustain their development, their activities, as well as take care of the environment in this very turbulent time we're living. So everybody agrees, and all the shippers and in the conferences before this topic comes up, there's too much legislation, too much environment, what are we going to do, it's costly. So we have legal aspects that of both ships and ports face. They have to comply with all this international, European, all this legislation. These obviously have economical effects on the ships, on the firms as well. And of course, another societal issue that you brought up, thank you very much, is the good relations with the stakeholders or the neighbors or the people living around the port and so on. All these result in high costs and really the environment becoming a competition factor. And I think, oh, sorry, I'm going that way. Yeah. So I think the approach that the European Seaports Organization, and that's the basis on what I've been talking about, have formulated their sort of support for their members in order to solve, in order to face these problems. I think it's as I say here, it's a sort of a bottoms-up approach for port environmental management. That is, they do not want these kind of umbrella legislations that the European Union tends to produce because as I say before, as I will say later, ports are unique. They want more like tools created by the ports for the ports, and they do not want the environment to become a competitive factor between the members. So can we, as I will say later, can we make a sort of playing a flat playing field? Can the playing field be non-competitive in terms of environment? So the ports are, through ESPO, through European Seaports Organization, are working together. They will try and find effective solutions. They will sort of collaborate and exchange good practices in order to face serious problems that are usually quite common to all. Everybody knows that, of course, ports are a very complicated setting for activities, economic activities. You may have nature habitats, you may have urban areas, you have industry, you have the logistics chain next to it. So it's a complicated system where we are trying to give some sustainability policy, if you want. So ESPO, quite early on, even in late 1990s, sort of produced this code of practice. And really they were urging ports to voluntarily self-regulate. And that, I think, is very important. The idea of sort of being against umbrella legislation does not leave you to do anything you want. You have to be seen and do the right things in terms of environment, both on an ethical and a legal aspect, of course. So go to high standards, comply with high standards through your own self-regulation. I think that's very important. Again, every port is unique, therefore no umbrella legislation can actually cover the port sector. But although they are unique, they have common challenges as well. Okay? Try and make the environment a non-competitive field. That's the level playing field I talked to you about. Join it up to a sustainable logistics chain. There's a lot of work going on now on developing new tools for the actual logistics chain, because the ports or the ship are only part of this big chain. This brings up, of course, tools for management, monitoring the environment, consultation with stakeholders and other reporting to the certifying bodies as well as the society. So why do we push the ports? Why is ESPO supporting the ports? They want to be compliant. They want to have good community relations. They have to manage their risk. They have to think about their investors and their stakeholders. Cut costs, and many times we've seen that putting in a tool like a management tool for the ports has actually reduced costs, liabilities, and so on. Okay, the positive image, and of course help with the development of port planning, new ideas, new activities, and so on. So I think it's been a very good decade or so that these have been put into practice, and already even countries that haven't taken too much part in this European initiative, like Greece, have already, since 2002, have introduced this idea of environmental monitoring in ports. It started with the Port Reception Facility directive in 2002. Then the Ministry of Mercantile Marine suggested that ports join this Eco-Ports Foundation, which is the part of ESPO that is dealing with the environmental issues of ports. And then, of course, in the national port policy of the ministry, it was very explicitly suggested that ports must implement a manager's system. And of course then came the Ministry of Environment through the framework for spatial planning, maritime spatial planning, that suggested definitely that direct implementation of environmental management systems in ports must take place. So very quickly, the idea started back in the late 90s, as I said. They asked ports what were their primary problems. Then they exchanged ideas and challenges. They produced very detailed and very important monitoring procedures for the environment. And then, of course, came the PERS certificate. This is Port Environmental Review System, which is something like an ISO 14001. I'll talk about that a bit later on if I have the time. And therefore, they produced, according to these findings, they produced, I think, two tools which are very important. We use them a lot for when we talk to ports and when we support them in this environmental management, what's called a self-diagnosis method, and I will go a little bit into it if I have time. And then, of course, environmental performance indicators is a very hot issue now. It's not good just saying that the port has so many exhausts, so many tons of CO2. You have to give it an indicator that is, it's so many tons of CO2 per, 1,000 TUs that you are putting through. So all these have come to a very good position and really are helping the ports very much. I will give you a sort of a list of how many ports in Greece at least have gone along this way to see. So this self-diagnosis methodology is a very simple tool. It's a checklist that will help you evaluate your performance and identify, that's very important, environmental risk and also priorities. So when you know that your problem is noise or dust or something, then you can actually set up procedures and management tools to try and solve that. And the other thing, of course, is this benchmarking, which is very important. That is, what are other ports doing? I may think my port is very backward in a certain thing, but if all the European ports are not doing so well in that, at least that gives me an indication that I'm not terribly out of place. So this benching is very important. So I've said this before, so try and see what is your environmental situation at the moment. So you monitor, you see, you have a sort of long-term monitoring schedule to see how things are going. You encourage the staff to be much more environmentally sensitive and help the top management who really are taking the decisions to implement these. As I said before, you can, through the long term, you can see how you're doing, check the effectiveness of your management options and implications. You comply with legislation, of course, which is very important. The comparison with the European ports, again, and identify the risks I told you. So it's quite a simple way of doing things. ESPO has a site, EcoPort site, which you can go into and take this checklist and start filling it in. It is then sent to ESPO, and an analysis takes place. You get a SWOT and a gap analysis. I'll say a bit on that, and then the benchmarking as well. And then you can see where you are, what are your priorities. They give you suggestions as to what to do, and so on. So this is the gap analysis. You see, you haven't done a certain thing, and therefore you can see how you're doing with the port environmental system, or with EMAS, or with ISO, and so on. So you know where you are compared to these other standards that are happening. Here, again, the European benchmark, you say yes to this question, whatever it is, and you can see where you are compared to other ports. Here, your answer is no. The SWOT analysis, I will say, indicates a threat that you're not doing very well. The thing is that 47% of European ports are not doing well either. So it's a nice way. And of course, this long-term progress, as I said. So this is, I've done this. I've put too much red on the left side, obviously. But just to show that as you go by, as the years go by and you implement these tools, you will be very, very good towards the end. Okay, so the Port Environmental Review System, as I said, is a certification system. It's based on the ISO 14001. It's actually issued and checked by Lloyd's Register, so it is in that way very important. The structure, I won't go through it. It's just like the 14,000, as I said. So, and then, of course, what it's planned to do, what it tries to do, is cost save and improve your management control, compliance with legislation. Where are we with legislation? Try and, as I said, give other ports the credibility of being an equal partner. Customer expectations, improve environmental performance. These performance indicators are coming in very much now. Raising the personnel, integrating, and so on. Okay, the monitoring is a very important aspect as well. We believe in that a lot. We do a lot of monitoring for the Port of Piraeus and other ports because we want to give them this scientific knowledge in order to base their management decisions upon. The ESPO and EcoPorts have not just stopped at the EcoPorts sort of project. They have all sorts of other projects going on at the moment. There's one for noise, air quality, a lot of air quality because it's a very hot issue, as you know. Energy efficiency, there you are. Ports are doing that, not only ships, which is nice to know. Satellite information for environmental monitoring. All these are projects that are either going on or have just finished, and this produces a lot of new knowledge and tools for the port industry. And really, what we're trying to do, here are some qualitative graphs for carbon footprinting, for example. This is the years, and here's how you're doing. A lot of the ports, what we're trying to do through the years is to see that they are doing very well to their carbon footprint, for the waste management, for the water consumption, and for the environmental management. How is the policy doing? How is the monitoring? How is the reporting doing? And so on. And this is just to show you that, in fact, those red color I put on the left were not just mine. Here is the response of the port sector. So through the years, doesn't matter about what it says here, through the years, all the hot issues concerning the ports, through the years, there's always a positive sign. There are more ports joining in. They feel that these tools are helping them in their effort to face environmental challenges. The Greek picture, 7 ports have already acquired PRO certification. You can see them, among them the first, Thessaloniki and Piraeus, others as well. And, of course, Port of Corfu has also gained ISO 14001 accreditation. I'd like to finish with this. This is back in 2001, 9/11, believe it or not. 2001, the president of ESPO, the chairman at the time, said only a safe and clean port will be able to survive, and that sustainable performance is a vital ingredient of commercial viability. So I think that's a sort of a topic, something to take away with us. That in fact, all this environmental work we are doing is part of their economic viability and sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.